Hello, welcome to More Yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining to me. Joining to me? No, joining me today for this class. I thought we'd get a little bit more into the back today. Low back, mid back, sidelines, stuff like that. And we'll just release some of that tightness that maybe some of us are feeling these days. So let's start lying down on our back. If you have a block or a pillow or something that you can use, even a folded up blanket, that's going to be really useful today. So if you need to pause, then go ahead and pause and grab one. And then join me on your back. And you can shake it out if you need to. See what feels good for you today, whether you're flat on your back with your legs straight in sort of a more traditional corpse pose. Maybe you take your knees bent, feet mat width apart, and let the knees hang in toward each other. And for a few breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. A couple more, just like that. Continue breathing however you need to, whether it's in and out through your nose or your mouth. Notice how your breath is flowing. If it feels really open and spacious. Or maybe you notice some sticky or choppy spots along the way, and that's fine. You might gently try to lengthen through those parts just to smooth your breath out a little bit more. You might notice different movement within your body with every breath. The rise and fall of your belly, your chest. The widening of your rib cage. Last few breaths here. And then take your time, bringing a little bit of movement back to your body. Wiggle of your fingertips or toes. And then bring your feet to the floor, mat width apart. And just allow your knees to take a little gentle windshield wiper from side to side. Getting a little bit of movement through the hips, but also a little bit of rotation through the spine. And then draw your knees in toward you and take a little rock from side to side. Massaging at the base of the spine and the pelvis. You might draw circles with the legs here. They could go in the same direction as each other, or you might take them in the opposite direction, sort of like frog legs, or if you're doing the breaststroke. And then maybe you interlace your hands across the top of your shins, or just have one hand on each shin, and then start to curl your nose toward your knees. This is stage one. Stage two is start to press your shins up to the sky. So you get a lot of flexion through the spine. And then release. Shake it out a little bit. Whew. All right. this is a good place to have your block or your cushion or whatever it is that you're going to use. Bring your feet to the floor, hip width apart-ish, parallel-ish, and then press your feet into the floor. And as you lift your hips, slide your block or cushion or whatever you're using underneath your hips so that they're lifted. And it doesn't have to be super crazy high. You can see I'm using my block on the lowest setting. But what we want is a little bit of pressure on the pelvis, on the backside, on the sacrum, really, to get a little bit of release. And if you know that you have sacrum issues or SI joint issues, it can be so beneficial to take your feet mat width apart here and let the knees hang in toward each other. And it might feel a little bit awkward at first, but if you feel pain, don't do it. Sometimes it just takes a little while for the body to settle into a position. This would be a great place to use a bolster underneath your bum. You don't want it so much under the lower back though, right? You can see it's quite far down my block. If you don't have any issues with your sacrum or SI, or if this doesn't feel like you're getting much out of it, totally fine. Then I recommend hugging your knees in toward your chest. Now, depending on how hard your block is, this may or may not feel comfortable. This kind of feels like it's digging in for me, but it's fine. I can at least demo. And then you just hug your knees in toward your chest. And with the lift in the pelvis, it should feel like you don't have to hold the knees, that they'll just naturally flop toward your chest or your shoulders here. You could take them wide if you wish, getting into the groin a little bit more, but then you might have to use your hands to hold them together. Last option, and all of these are fantastic for releasing low back tightness, is to stretch the legs up to the sky. And again, with that tilt in the pelvis, they're probably not right above reaching up to the sky, right? They're kind of drawn back. So a few breaths. Knees can be straight or bent, and you might have the arms or the legs reaching up to the sky. You might have the knees bent, or maybe you have the feet on the floor with the knees hanging in toward each other. So spend the last couple breaths here, or whatever position you have chosen. One more inhale. One sweet exhale. And if your knees or legs are raised up, slowly, gently start to bring your feet back to the floor, hip width apart, and then squeeze your bum, lift the hips up, remove your block or your cushion or your bolster off to the side, and release your hips back down to the earth, and again, take a little windshield wiper of the legs. So that was a really beautiful way to release through the lower back or the pelvis. Now, the biggest culprits for low back tightness are hip flexors and hamstrings. So we'll get into those as well. So come on up to hands and knees. However it feels good for you, whether you rock and roll up and down your spine or press yourself up sideways. And then setting up with knees underneath hips. Toes can be tucked or untucked. Hands outer shoulder width apart or wider. Inhale. Lift the tailbone to the sky. Hollow through the lower back. Wrap the shoulder blades toward each other. And then exhale, round through your spine. Really press it up to the sky. Inhale to dip the belly into cow. Exhale, round the spine into cat. So a few more of these on your own time, on your own breath. Moving however you need to. Your cat and cow might look nothing at all like mine, and that's awesome because that's what yoga is like. Different in every body. And then gently come back to center. Okay, plant your hands on your inhale. Peel the right arm out to the side, maybe lift it up to the sky. As you exhale, thread your right arm underneath the left. Don't get too cozy though. Press back into the floor. Inhale, up and open, and exhale, thread. One more time. Inhale, up. Exhale, thread, and then start to shimmy down toward the floor. You might bring a block or something underneath the shoulder or the side of the head, just to bring the floor up to you. So now we're getting a lovely rotation through the spine. You might stay here. You could press the left hand into the floor. I really like bringing the heel of my hand into the crease of the right wrist to get more traction along that right side of the body. You could also walk your fingertips up to the top edge of the mat, or maybe over to the left. Maybe you drape the hand behind the low back. There are so many options here for you. Last couple breaths. And then slowly bring that left hand back underneath your shoulder or elbow. On your inhale, press yourself back up. Little wiggle or shake. Release any tension that might have built up. And then plant the right hand. Inhale the left arm out to the side, maybe up to the sky. Exhale, thread it underneath. 2 more like that. Inhale, up. Exhale, thread. 1 more. And then coming onto the side of the shoulder or the back of the shoulder, side of the head, wherever feels good for you. And maybe you stay here. Maybe you bring the heel of that right hand into the crease of the left wrist. Maybe you walk the fingertips up to the top edge of the mat or over to the left. Or maybe you drape the arm behind the low back. Wherever you need to go. Last few breaths here. And then slowly bring your right hand back underneath you. Inhale. Press yourself back up. Hands and knees. Little wiggle. Little shake. And then let's rest back in child's pose. So either knees together to get a little bit more of a release through the low back, though you will get more compression through your belly that way. Or knees wide, toes together, heels back. Either way, you're still going to get release through the low back. This way you just get a little bit more in the hips. Knees together, you'll get a little bit more through the low back. You can always stack your fists underneath your forehead, but try to let the arms release. So they don't need to be super active. And on your inhale, slowly press yourself back up, hands and knees, and then tuck your toes. Exhale, lift your hips all the way up and back into downward facing dog. You could pedal your heels here toward the floor if you like. You could wag your tail from side to side. You could try coming up onto fingertips on one hand or the other, or maybe both at the same time. And I'd like you to bend your knees a little bit more than you normally would. Hug your upper arm bones toward each other and start to press the hands away from you into the fingertips. And you'll feel that shifting your shoulder blades, but also your spine. Your entire spine gets really long here. So the sit bones start to reach up to where the back wall meets the ceiling. From there, maybe start to straighten the legs a little bit, or maybe just keep them nice and bent with the lower belly resting on the upper thighs. Last breath here. Okay, bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, walk, step, or hop to the top edge of your mat, coming into standing forward fold. Knees bent. You could sway a little bit from side to side. You could clasp opposite elbows with hands. Maybe even interlace your hands behind your head or neck to get a little bit more traction through the cervical spine. And then release your hands with fingertips to your shins or to blocks or the earth as you inhale, lift up. Partway, lengthen through the spine. Exhale, let it all go. 2 more, just like that. And then bend your knees. Tuck your chin into your chest, head heavy, arms heavy. Slowly start to roll up to standing. One vertebra at a time, slow as you need to go, and notice if there's any tightness in the low back or anywhere along the back. You could use your hands on your thighs, or maybe you pause in those moments of tightness. And we're going to bend the knees, tuck the chin, and then go straight back down. So we'll do a few of these ragdoll cycles. Up and down, knees bent the entire time though, just to help protect the pelvis. You can go as slow as you need to go, or as quickly as feels good. The next time that you inhale, or that you come all the way up to standing, pause there. Couple loops of your shoulders, up, back, and down. And once you get there, wiggle, release whatever you need to release. Okay, feet hip width apart-ish, parallel-ish. Hug the legs toward each other, belly button to spine. On your inhale, sit down into chair pose, so the hips go down and back, right? I'm not sitting up here, I'm not on a bar stool, right? I'm sitting down into a chair. And then think tailbone down just to the belly button engages toward the spine, and then lift the upper back. Bring the arms into cactus. So there's a little bit more extension through the spine than you might normally get in chair pose. Inhale here. As you exhale, tuck the tailbone under, round through the spine. Give an imaginary friend a big bear hug. Inhale, lift back up. Exhale, round. So this is kind of like cat and cow, but we're in chair rather than on hands and knees. On your next exhale, come all the way forward into standing forward fold. Fingertips to shins. Little partway lift. Exhale, fold. On your inhale, step your right leg back for warrior one. Pause here with the fingertips on the floor. Really check your alignment. So you'd like hip width between the feet, right? So that's at least 2 fists could fit between your feet. Bend into that front leg. Start wrapping the right hip forward as you draw your left hip back. Belly button to spine, drive through the front heel. Reach the left arm forward and up, and then the right. Inhale, come all the way up to warrior one. The idea, or the theory, is that we've set the foundation, but if you need to adjust, then adjust. And then start to sink into that front knee. Supercharge the back leg towards straight. Squeeze the bum, squeeze the top of the thigh. Inhale, lift the arms up overhead. As you exhale, sweep the torso forward. Bring your arms behind you. Inhale, back up. And exhale, fly. This could be super steady and controlled, or like me, it could be full of wild abandon. You might rebound at the bottom. Last breath here. Okay, on your inhale, straighten through the front leg. As you exhale, swan dive forward, working toward both legs straight in pyramid. So this is a really good place to bring blocks underneath your hands, to bring the floor up to you. You could also step the back foot forward and wider from where it is to make this more accessible as well. Keep wrapping that right hip forward. Draw the left hip back, belly button to spine. If you don't have blocks and your hands don't comfortably reach the floor, you can rest your hands on that front thigh, so long as you're not jamming that knee back. Last breath here. Okay, bend into that front knee. Walk your fingertips or your blocks forward. And as you inhale, lift the back leg high into a standing splits. Really wrap that supporting hip back. On your exhale, step all the way back for a high lunge. Again, maintaining hip width between the feet. And then inhale, come up. You can start with that back knee bent if you want, really wrapping that right hip forward. Draw the left hip back, and then start to supercharge the back leg towards straight. Squeeze the bum, squeeze the top of the thigh. And you can probably really start to feel those hip flexors I want you to squeeze the bum like crazy on the back leg so that you don't end up dumping into the lower back. Inhale the arms high. One more breath here. Exhale, release your hands to the floor. Step back through a flow or to downward facing dog or tabletop if that works better for you. If you're in anything other than tabletop or downward facing dog, make your way to one of those two positions. Bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, walk, step, or hop to the top edge of the mat. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, full. Inhale, sweep all the way up to the sky. Exhale, right back down to the earth. Forward fold. Inhale, lift up partway. Exhale, fold. On your inhale, step your left leg back for warrior one. Pause here. So checking out the feet. My hands are on blocks. I think that feels quite comfortable. You might have hands on the floor. Really start to wrap that left hip forward as you draw the right hip back. And then belly button to spine, length through the spine. Reach the right arm forward and up. Then the left, drive through the front heel to come all the way up into warrior one. Supercharge that back leg towards straight. That's where all your strength comes from. Takes the pressure off that front thigh. So squeeze the bum, squeeze the top of the thigh. Can you de-weight the big toe on the back foot so you're not rolling into the arch of the foot? Okay, on your inhale, lift a little bit higher. Exhale, sweep the torso forward and down. Inhale up. And exhale, fly. On your next inhale, gently straighten through the front leg. Exhale, swan dive forward. Again, working towards both legs straight in pyramid, so you might adjust the back foot up or wider from where it is. And then really actively draw that back hip forward, front hip back, belly button to spine. Make sure the knees have buoyancy. Hands could be on blocks, on the floor. Maybe you're hovering them. One more inhale. One sweet exhale. And then bend into the front knee. Walk your fingertips or blocks forward. Inhale, lift the back leg up into standing splits or a standing L shape. Really actively draw that supporting hip back though. We have a tendency to sort of collapse into it. Squeeze the top of the thigh on the lifted leg. And then picture it or spot it on the mat. Exhale, step all the way back for high lunge. And then inhale up. Bend the back knee. Wrap that left hip forward, front or right hip back, and then supercharge the back leg towards straight. Squeeze the bum, squeeze the top of the thigh. If you're able to stack the heel over the back toes, that becomes a really strong position as well. Squeeze the bum even more to get into those hip flexors. Last breath here. Exhale, release, forward fold. Release to the floor and then step forward into a forward fold. Little bounce or sway, whatever you need. Inhale, lift up partway. Exhale, let it go. Plant your hands and come down to hands and knees. Little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. And then shift your hips to one side, swing your legs forward, and shake it out a little bit. That was enough standing up. Who needs that? Just a little bit of extra heat, a little bit of extra blood flow. Okay, bend your left shin in, or bend the knee. And this doesn't have to be any particular position. It's just to get this leg out of the way. And then bend the right knee. Take the left hand to the outside of the right foot. And from here, that heel's going to be rather close in. Not too crazy, but you're going to put the right fingertips on the floor, press into the right fingertips to puff the spine back and round it. Think of tucking the tailbone up and under. Right? So you're just scooping through the low back. This is a great place to stay. You're probably feeling it most in the upper back and the shoulders. So if you would like to try somewhere else along the spine, you just start to slide that front heel forward. And then you might start to feel it in mid back or low back. And the more that you press those right fingertips away from you, the easier you will maintain that deep, deep flexion through the spine. Last breath here. And slowly, gently release. Whew. Shake it out a little bit. Right away, let's swap to the opposite side. So right leg comes in, left knee bends, grab the outside of the left foot with the right hand, and then left fingertips out to the side, right? And then press into those fingertips. Exhale into this deep flexion, rounding through the spine. Even tuck the chin in. And maybe you stay here. Maybe you start to slide that left heel away from you, wherever it needs to go. Right? We have different tightnesses on the body, and they usually kind of do like an S shape. So if you're tight in the upper back on one side, you're probably tight on the lower back on the other, or maybe mid. Last couple breaths here. And then slowly, release. Shake it out a little bit. And extend your legs forward. Shake them out. So what we're going to do is not a hamstring stretch, or even worse, not a stretch of the sciatic nerve. So if you have blocks, one or two, or your pillow, bring them beneath your knees. And if you don't have blocks, it doesn't matter. Just keep your knees bent. The blocks are just easier to use so that you don't forget. And then if you have something else that you can sit up on to help tilt the pelvis forward, that can be really useful so that you actually have some range of movement coming forward. But with the knees bent, where we're getting into more is the low back instead of the legs. So start to walk yourself forward on a long line to start with. And I'll show you from the side. So you can see the general position. Keep flexing those toes back toward your face. Right? If this feels all right on the low back, then you might start to drape forward. And yes, you are going to feel this in the back of the legs, but it's taking the main bulk of the hamstring tension out of this stretch so that you can really release through the low back. A few breaths here. One more inhale. One sweet exhale. And then slowly, you can use your hands. Start to roll yourself back up. And then remove the pillows or cushions or blocks, whatever you have underneath your knees. Bring your hands behind you, fingertips pointing back. And then bend the knees, walk the feet in slightly. Wrap your shoulder blades toward each other. Press into the floor with the hands and feet. Shift the hips forward. And then really wrap the shoulder blades toward each other. Lift through the heart. Press through the index knuckle mounds a little bit more. Opening through the chest and shoulders. We've done a lot of rounding forward today, so this is just to counteract that. And then gently bend your elbows to shake it out, release, and slowly make your way down onto your back. Whatever that looks like. Maybe you're using your hands to come down. Maybe you're doing a Pilates roll down. And then draw your knees into your chest. Little rock from side to side. Take your right arm out to the side. You might shift your hips to the right to start with. As you exhale, lower your knees to the left for a twist. really gentle, simple twist, allowing the spine to lengthen as well as rotate. You might look along the right arm to finish the spiral within the neck and the spine. I mean, the neck is part of the spine, but and inhale, slowly come back to center. Reset your spine and your pelvis. Maybe shift the hips a little bit to the left. Exhale, lower the knees to the right. And maybe you look along your left arm. Last breath here. And inhale, come back to center. Hug your knees in toward your chest. Little rock from side to side. If there's anything else you feel like you need before your rest, whether it's curling into that sort of round shape, or maybe take a happy baby to help reset the pelvis, whatever you need. Last couple breaths. And then start to think about where you would like to go for your rest. If you have those blocks or cushions in those positions of with the block underneath the hips, if that felt good, that would be a really great place to rest today. Maybe you just rest on your back or in a fetal position. You could rest in child's pose or a seated position, wherever you need to be. And then for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. 2 more. With each exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. Let go of all breath control, all muscle gripping or tension, especially in your face or your jaw. Stay here as long as you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.